Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Artful Soul, inspiration and big ideas for healing, reflection, and learning through the arts. I'm Rachel Rose. I'm the face behind Workshop Muse, and with me here today, I have Youhjung, who's from Thirsty for Art. Welcome, Youhjung. We're so happy that you're here.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Rachel.
And we didn't plan it. I just am noticing right now we're both wearing like our plaid. This is the
I know, right?
plaid. Maybe we should have talked about plaid today instead of healing through the art. I don't know. It's so cute. We're today, Youhjung and I are going to talk about healing through art, which I am so excited because she's an art therapist, and I think she's perfectly qualified to have this conversation around the actual healing aspects of art. So let me just do a little introduction, and then we'll jump into talking about this, Youhjung. So Youhjung Son is a certified art therapist, artist, consultant, and content creator for YouTube channel Thirsty for Art, and she lives in Austin, Texas. And she's a squeaky.
Oh, sorry about that.
This is Youhjung's words here. Through art therapy, she has helped everyone from 3-year-olds with behavior problems to adults with addiction to seniors with Alzheimer's. Youhjung is passionate about bringing therapeutic art making to the everyday person and using art as a healing tool to express and understand oneself. Through podcasts, YouTube, and blogging, Youhjung helps make art therapy accessible and encourages people to pick up their paintbrushes and create without judgment. When not working, Youhjung can be found hiking in the woods or cuddling with her cauliflower-eared cat, Guru. Oh, I love that name. And Youhjung, you are in Austin. If you didn't, I think you said that. You're in Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
very hot and humid here.
Very hot and humid there. We were just saying, and I am not in Austin. I'm in a very cold place. So Youhjung wanted to talk about healing through the art, and I think you can hear through her background and lived experience that I think you have, as an art therapist, so much to offer us. So Youhjung, just tell us, like, what is healing through the art? What does that mean when you talk about that? What does that? What comes to mind?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people use art, or they encounter art making, at least once in their lives. But I think it's very uncommon to use art as a way to heal ourselves. So my idea of healing through arts is using art to kind of enhance our lives in many ways. Maybe our health, maybe our mood, our emotions, our relationships. So like through the process of making art, I believe that it can like impact our lives in positive ways. And doing that intentionally is what I think is all about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to hear you say that we all encounter art making, but it's not necessarily common for us to do the healing aspect of it, right? Because when I thought about that, I was like, is that true? Is it? And then I was like, yeah, because I think what you just talked about with the intention piece, that's what's different. I think sometimes people have had healing that's happened through art, or they have naturally felt that gravitation or that pull, but whether it was like a byproduct or kind of like collaterally created, or whether it was like intentionally done is kind of the interesting thing. Hey?
Yeah, I think like sometimes, or maybe most times during our school years, we are kind of pressured to make art, maybe to make a certain kind of looking art, like certain product of art that looks a certain way, or maybe to make a perfect kind of painting or drawing or something like that. But there's not a lot of expressive piece to it. And I think that we use art, and in a way we kind of are intuitively, we intuitively gravitate towards art because it's very relaxing and calming and makes us feel focused. But I think that we are missing that kind of the intention piece a bit, where if you really look at art and approach it in a way that's intentional and it's about healing, and we are willing and open to heal, then it just takes the art level a whole new level and degree. And a lot of things can happen, at that level. Your moods can shift quite dramatically, and your life can look different. You as a person can look different, and how you feel about yourself can look different. So yeah, what I'm trying to do is like, let's do this more intentionally. Let's see if we can kind of focus on the process and like expressing ourselves more, so that it can feel more therapeutic and feel more healing.
Yeah. It's interesting. Just when you were talking about that, I was thinking about somebody I work with who is like a professional artist, right? And so you probably get that too, where there's people who are, like, I do this for a living. I sell this. This is what I make. But I also like kind of feel like I've been so focused on the product that I kind of like, I want to be able to like wear two hats when I want to. I want to be able to be like, I'm having a terrible day and I want to turn to my medium for that, versus like I'm turning to my medium and selling it. And then there's some artists who they turn to their medium with their feelings, and then that's kind of where it kind of flows that way. But there's a lot of other people who have like their gig, their thing they make, and so that like two sides, the shifts of that. And for some reason, when I was thinking about that, this isn't the same person, but I was thinking like, for like if we were to think about somebody maybe who's experienced a loss in their life and is going through grief, right? An experience that all of us will go through in some capacity or another in our lives, right? And so to think about that, maybe that same artist who has experienced grief and has this container where they're going to it, making beautiful things, versus like taking that grief and moving it into a place where it's like, I just need to have a container for my grief, right? Like I feel the pull to do this and I want to do this. And they don't always have to stay separate, I guess, right? Is the thing that's tricky, is it's like, sometimes that can all be like one messy little pile, but sometimes it can be separate. Sometimes you're like, okay, I'm going to do my thing over here, but I really need a spot. And I guess that's when people go to like art therapists would be like the messy container, like, let's just do it here, eh?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I mean, this is not, the case for 100% of us, but I think a lot of times when we focus on creating a product or artwork that you want to sell, the aesthetic is very important. How it looks like is important. So it's very hard when you're focused on the product to also focus on the process.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying, it's impossible, but it's hard for us. So when we look at, oh, this doesn't look the way I want it to look like, so that I can sell this. When we're thinking in that way, it's really hard to focus on our feelings. And it's hard to like tap into that deep, like rooted emotions and thoughts that we want to kind of release when we make art. And that's really like the purpose of expressive art and healing through art.
And what I would say too is I think we kind of talked about this earlier, but like I really think that like intuitively, or whatever you want to call it, people gravitate towards the arts. There are so many people that are like, oh yeah, right? Like I've always wanted to create, or I've always wanted to like, I've always had this spark within me that's wanted to like, make things and create and do things. And so most of us sit in this like land of like just the yearning, the desire to create. And I think that for most people, like that healing, I think intuitively we know that it's good for us, that it's like a safe place for us to turn to. It helps us make sense of what's going on inside of us. It helps us unearth, unpack, bring things out. And so we go into it and we're like, we have this like big package of something and we want to move into it, and then we're like, oh, but my stuff should look really pretty, right? Oh, but what I'm making is like not. And then we forget that like, no, that's not kind of what, like that's not the purpose of why we sat down. Why you sat down was because you wanted to create. And did you create or did you not create, right? Like
definitely. I think we have this like yearning to look at our emotions in front of us, kind of let what's inside of us come out. And it's human nature. We want to be understood. We want to be validated, but we don't get that a lot of times. And it's very hard to get that from other people, especially from outer conditions. So I think that's one of the reasons why we are gravitated towards expressive art, because we want to see our own emotions. We want to understand ourselves a lot, but it's just that I think our inner critic does get, does come up when we make art. And we just use other people's or the world's standards of what things should look like and what things shouldn't look like. Yeah. So that's where we kind of trip.
Yeah, totally. As you're saying, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and as you're saying too, what's coming to mind is the whole understanding of witnessing, right? Because it's like the way I always describe it is it's like, so for example, I just was like really angry about 1 hour ago. Really angry. I have 12 kids. Things are a little bit chaotic. I like totally like had this like anger feeling, right? And so I had this like body anger feeling, right? And like ideally I would have been able to like sit down and had time to kind of channel it. I think I'll have to go back and revisit it. So part one is that I've got this like I felt it like here. And then if I were to like take that with like pen and paper or like clay or just write, sometimes I'll write poetry or something if I don't have, if I'm like only have my phone or something. I bring that anger and I bring it out. So it's not so like in me, right?
Yeah.
And then I have it here. But then the next piece that I think is so important for the healing aspect is it's one thing for me to like bring it out and use the arts to like help me do some sense making. It's another thing for me to say, Youhjung, look at this mess. Look at how angry I was this morning. Like, and you as an art therapist or as what I would call a safe witness would be like, yeah, I see that, right? And then that is what I've seen is where the healing happens, is having the witnessing side of it. Which is that your experience too?
Yes, I think so too. Like it is one thing to let out our messy sides and let out our truth, but to be accepted for that, to have that, and to express that is another thing. And I think that we have a lot of fear that. Maybe we brought up this way, or maybe we learned from other people around us, but we have this kind of expectation that people will reject us if we are a certain way, if we have this certain emotion. And so when we let out our feelings and emotions, and the really true ones, especially the difficult ones, I think the really big step for us to take is like be able to accept that. And that's what our therapists do. That's what, I do. So validating that and accepting that and exploring it further. But I think that we miss that piece when we just focus on, making an artwork and expecting it to be pretty. And that's like the piece, really important piece of healing through art. It's what happens next after you make art. And I see so much of that, like that problem come up for people who do art for self-care. So.
Yeah. What happens next? So it's like, it's one thing to like, because I think I'm kind of making up a story here, but I think for a lot of people watching this, they like, maybe they art journal, or maybe they've got something, they have that desire, that yearning that we're talking about. And so they want to sit down and they watch some YouTube videos, or they're doing stuff, or they're playing with new tools or mediums, and they want to have that like journaling thing. And maybe they'll do some writing, or they'll kind of want to be leaning into some kind of more feeling piece of things. But then they, maybe the reason why that they stop, or they're not finding the healing benefits of it. Because what you and I probably experience is we get lots of people who are coming to us in places of like transformation, right? Like grief, like, anxiety, depression, stress, like things where they're like, something's not wrong. I'm like, I can't continue this way, and I need support, and and it feels right to use it through the arts, right? And so they go into their medium, and then they kind of feel some benefits, but then they kind of like, it will kind of fall, or they won't be able to sustain it. And what I think are the key kind of ingredients, and you might have like, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I think it's like that intention piece around what you're being really clear. Like, are you trying to make a cool mixed media art journal spread, or are you sitting down to like express something here, right? So the intention, and then the other piece is the witnessing thing, because I think, and the witnessing thing can look different, but you really need to like have a safe person to share that with, to like open up that book and be like, oh man, I was angry, and like, this is what it looked like, right? Because it makes it real, when otherwise it's still all in you, right? Like to have a safe witness is a really, and it's the scariest. I think it's the scariest. Maybe not for other, maybe the art making is scarier for other people, but the witnessing is the scariest for me, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't even start making art because of that piece, because of that witnessing, because they don't want to be, or they fear that. So it can be a big hurdle. And I think, a lot of people get like blocked because of that, and they just not continue the art because the inner critic and the judgment, and that is still there.
Yeah.
It's still there, and we don't know how to overcome it.
Yeah. So, totally, right?
Yeah. And I think, I think what we're talking here is really about compassion. It's really about validating ourselves. And in the case of art therapy, the art therapist is there to help do that, to provide that for us. But with my work and how I help people with my YouTube and podcast is like, I always include reflection and reflective writing after the artwork. And I think that's one big part of how to heal through art.
Yeah.
It's not just the art. It's like after you make it, it's like our attitude and how do we accept this? How do we hold this difficult thing that we just expressed?
Yeah.
That's the big piece. And I think a lot of people have a hard time dealing with that kind of stuff. And it's just, I
think so too. I think the writing is like, if you're not writing when you're creating, you're like, you're like, you know what I mean? If there's one thing you can do, like if you're listening to this right now and you're like, hey, I don't do that. It's like, do that. And that will bring you healing, right? There's something about the compliment, whatever your medium is, right? If you, to be able to like create and then write to that creation or give that creation a voice, like that's where all the synergy happens. Cause it's like, again, like you're taking it out, and so you kind of have this like raw messy thing, and then you have to start doing things to like unpack that and make sense of that back into yourself, right? And the writing is the thing that I think anytime, that's the thing I hear from people who are like, I didn't want to write, because they have like flashbacks from like high school, like, I don't do poetry, and I know you told me to use like a poetic voice or give that thin voice, and I punctuation, grammar, or whatever. But if they can just write without any of that and just let it just be, that there will be sense making that will evolve through that, and the healing will happen through that in part. Hey?
Yeah. And you really bring up a good point. Like, I really encourage, if you're watching this, just write. And I think if you don't have a particular idea how to write, it's just write whatever comes up. Really, just stream of consciousness, whatever comes up when you see your artwork. How was the process? How do you feel right now? And really get into the artwork. And that's really a good way to do it on your own without having a therapist.
Right? Which just your daily thing. And I do that all the time too, right? Like I will just sit down and I will be like, or if I feel stuck, or if I feel uninspired or whatever, or if I'm like did something and I'm like, what am I doing? I just will like move to writing, and then like, or I will go back and forth, and it will keep things alive for me. It will help me figure out stuff, and there'll be like some reciprocity that will happen back and forth between it.
Yeah, sometimes when we make art and we feel very vulnerable, especially if it's like very difficult and painful emotion that we're dealing with, then it's very hard to close that experience and feel safe. So I think writing can be a really good way to close that experience and still feel like you have control.
Yeah, for sure.
You're safe, because writing is a little bit different from just colors and shapes and lines. So if you're doing this alone, then definitely writing.
Yeah. And actually you probably do something similar too. I mean, I was taught this, but what I often encourage people to do is like you said, stream of consciousness writing, or give the object a voice. Like if it was speaking to you, what would it be saying? Or, or if something, write a poem if that feels right. And then at the end of it to look back and like underline like the 2 or 3 words that feel most important, right? Like distilling that to like, I wrote a whole bunch, but I was kind of just warming up. And then like, oh, this sentence right here, like that's the nugget, that's the little crystal. And then you have the crystal to take away put that back in and be like, that's what Rachel, that's
Yeah.
big old anger was about this morning, right? Like,
Yes. Yeah. It gives us that distance between our emotions that we put out on paper, let's say it was paper, and ourselves. And when we make art, it can be like very close, like that distance between our emotions and us. We might be like, actually together. But when we kind of write down like our reflections and thoughts and feelings, it's like we can kind of look at with a safe space between our emotions and us. So that's really what's really helpful about like writing, I think.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And like we talked about earlier too, like that's I think what the beauty of an art therapist is if you need something, like I think we're kind of dancing around two things here. There's a piece around like doing like this work for yourself in the privacy of your home, or bringing in a friend or a loved one to kind of witness your work. And then there's like a piece where sometimes you need like some actual professional support, or really. And so what I tell people all the time is to like go online, find a certified art therapist or a certified expressive art therapist near you, because they're all over the world, right? And then that person can help you if there's something that's kind of bigger or beyond, right? Like, I mean, if we're dealing with trauma, or we're dealing with something where you're like, this is too much for me and it doesn't feel safe, like just a few sessions sometimes with somebody who's certified to be able to support you is great. And that's the thing, we're not going to do this online, right? Like we're not, we can offer tools and support, but sometimes you really do need to get in the room with a certified art therapist or expressive art therapist and have somebody kind of really hold your hand through the process, right?
Yeah, and I think that person will know if that's the case. And I think, it's, but I think a lot of people have have not a lot of ideas of how to even approach expressive arts, how to even approach making art for yourself. So that's where we come in online and, give you guidance and help and ideas and inspiration. But I think that, people will know when they are actually at that point where it's like they do need more help and they want to go deeper into the process. Then definitely finding someone and just trying out art therapy or expressive art therapy is a really good, good way to move forward if you really want to, heal through art.
Heal through art, right? Yeah. And what I find too is I actually have a lot of people who their therapist has said, like, maybe you need to find something to your home practice. Like maybe you could find a tool or resource or something like to complement the work that we're doing in therapy. And so that's often what people will come to me. They're like, this is my thing. I got like really complex stuff going on, but I need something to do. I need somebody to like hold my hand through like what I'm doing at home, because I need as many complementary I can't, my therapist is encouraging me to find other stuff too. So that's what I think is this work is a nice complement to that support as well. That way it either feeds you in or it supports you out too, right?
Yeah.
So that broader healing process of whatever's going on for people, right?
Yeah, I totally agree.
So you have a cool YouTube channel that people can check out. It's cool. Your videos are like, I'm like, whoa, like you're putting some love into those videos.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, they're beautiful. And you're a certified art therapist in Austin as well too. Yes. And you have a podcast as well, hey?
I do, and I haven't been regular on my podcast, but from now on, I'm pretty regular. I'm going to be pretty regular.
Yeah, and you also have a lovely Instagram too, where you post really beautiful things too. So if people want to learn more about the art therapy side of things, or just check into some of the tools and the resources that you have, they can check you out. We'll have links to all of those sorts of things too. So thanks, Youhjung. That was so great to like be able to talk about the kind of formal art piece around the healing and what that looks like.
Yeah, it was really fun, really get in deep about this topic. It's a precious opportunity for me to share.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. Well, thanks so much. And I hope people will check you out, and I'm sure we'll be able to connect sometime down the line too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.